And good evening. This is the Dominance Academy, and I'm your host, Mr. Justin. And tonight we're going to be getting into the topic of four keys to giving powerful instructions in a dynamic. Yes, four steps, and it's for the initial steps. It's not the only steps you need, but it's the four key steps to giving powerful instructions in a dynamic. And this was brought about by um, this was brought about by a discussion that I came across on Substack, and it got into it's weird how certain things come up in like the same topic but in different areas of my life. And so it came up on Substack, and it came up in Locario Miles' show earlier today, and they were talking about types of instruction and how to make it effective. Because I think there was this guy who called in, and he was having trouble with his instructions, and because he was making some flaws. So really, it's not about like just opening your mouth and saying something and making sure that you say something that's really not good enough. There really is an art to giving good instruction. There's an art to leadership, and it's not just a matter of having say so, right? Because leadership is not just something that's inborn. It's something that is created. It's something that's cultivated over time through making mistakes and learning from them, and then also doing research and learning from various other sources. It's a subject that is widely studied for the various applications that leadership can take place. So there's people who teach it that go to businesses. They host like workshops for various companies, various corporations, and they go in and they teach the more strategic methodologies to leadership. And this is so it can be a very granular topic. It's not just this is what I want and I'm going to tell you to do it. Like it's not that easy. I mean, at times it can be for sure, but that's not all what it's about. So we're going to cover some of those basics, the foundational basics, and hope you guys had a fine weekend. It's still brick as fuck here in New York, but this week it's going to be coming through into the 30s and 40s. Wow, it's going to feel like spring. Holy shit. Um, but yeah, we're coming into 30s and 40s, so that's coming up. And then later on this month, I might be doing like a shared panel or an interview or something like that with my buddy Glenn Lawrence and Gia McCool, who he's been working with for a while. I think he's producing her shows, so I might be on her podcast or their podcast discussing who knows what. So that should be coming up soon. I don't know if that's going to be recorded or live, but once I get more information, if I do go, I'll be sure to share that. Um, Hope you're planning out your week ahead. That's really important. That's part of leadership. Is part of leading well, which is to make note. Make note of the future. Okay, it's hard to lead if you're only worried about the present. Though you do have to be very present minded, you also have to be future minded, and you also have to be past minded, because the past is where lessons are, where you can reflect. And it's not it's not like a super easy task. Okay, but once you get into it, okay, like once you get into the kind of like exercising or any other art or any other practice, the more you do it, you adapt, and then it becomes less arduous, and it just becomes the thing you do, and you just build a habit around it. And this is not it's not a bad thing, right? It's not a terrible thing to be living your life like that. But if you want to be the head, it's just something you're gonna have to accept. Okay. You have to accept the burden of your position. Okay. And I think this is just what we have to accept in any position that we take, anything that we agree to, or that we're even thrown into, because sometimes we don't have all the power. Like maybe you have to have a job that you don't exactly like, but you have to assume responsibility over that position. You're part of a larger system. And as the and as someone who is choosing to lead, like, you can't really complain. You really don't have any room to complain, you know? Yes, Uncle Guns. I didn't know you were aware of Glenn. Yep, he took over the dragon ship from Thor. Yep. Yeah, and Thor was an awesome dude, man. He had a number of phone conversations, and a lot of it was just talking about BDSM and power dynamics, because he had like a duo live-in situation, like his main girlfriend, and then they had like this, like an extra sub who was there, I think, full time, or maybe almost full time with them. But it was interesting. Um, so yeah, and for those who are interested in developing that sort of thing, like a dual sub, or like even just having like side chick sort of situation that's not seen as threatening, but actually something that's welcomed, or something that's arousing, that is something that you can learn in the academy. Um, it's it's something that you have to cultivate, but you can do it with a lot of fun, actually, as long as you've activated your playful sadist side. You can pretty much craft anything you like, and as long as that little imp is helping pull the levers, the little imp of the crafty sadist, which is to say, you're just not taking things too seriously, and you have a playful spirit about it, but also there's this idea that, like, causing harm doesn't make you shrink back and become too entirely conscientious. um, there's a scale. I think Jordan Peterson talks about this, about the conscientiousness scale. And say, like cold ass players, they're gonna be low on the conscientious scale. um, and say, like someone who's a sociopath or a psychopath, they're extremely low on the conscientious scale. They do not think about other people at all. um, Whereas maybe like a player might a little bit, right? And then you kind of move on the other end of the scale, all the way towards like guys who are simps, and they're going to have very high rating of conscientiousness, to the point where it gets so much, so high, that it becomes self-sacrificing. And then that's an extreme. So the two extremes don't really work well with creating strong bonds. Um, and if you find the middle there, right, where it's like a little bit of conscientiousness, and a little bit of coldness, a little bit of detachedness, um, that will allow for greater things to happen. Because there is a thing about leadership where you do have to make decisions that don't necessarily benefit the whole right then and there. It's going to be something that maybe even doesn't even benefit you at all, but you know that it's something that will benefit the whole further down the road. Um, and that's just part of being cold. And also part of it is the selfishness. So being like, this is the thing that I want to happen, or this is what I'm going to do because it pleases me and only me. And you may not like it. Maybe it doesn't harm you, but you may not like it. And that's what's going to happen, because this is how I'm choosing, right? This is what I'm choosing to do. And the thing is that when the girl really trusts you and trusts that you're not doing anything out of malice, then she's more likely to go along with whatever that is, especially if she can feel your calm conviction. Calm conviction is an incredibly powerful tool, and especially if it's genuine, right? I don't know how you can have like disingenuous conviction, because then it's not conviction. What are you asking here? Is that pretty much a sadist, a psychopath? No, no. Psychopaths might. So sadism is just the idea of getting arousal in some form, like, so it could be excitement, it could be happiness, it could be just feeling energized, like, you know, yeah, just feeling energized, or it could be like sexual arousal through giving pain or discomfort to another person. And there's it's a wide range. Okay. And this could range from just pulling the girl's pigtails on the school grounds, right? Or making fun of her and getting a rise out of that. Like, that's sadistic, right? You're getting pleasure from causing harm. Okay. It's just emotional harm through jokes. That, or it could go all the way up into something that would be, um, sadism that would put the person in prison. Okay, because you are causing, like, serious physical harm to somebody, or serious psychological harm to somebody, like gaslighting to the point where they lose sense of reality, and the other person needs to go into a mental institution, right? Like, that's a level of sadism where they're getting pleasure out of making the person lose their mind, or getting pleasure out of, maiming the body and that sort of thing. And and then there's lots of varying degrees in between, and lots of different, like, stimulation points. Like I said, it's not, it could be sexual, it could be something physical, it could be emotional, it could be psychological. um I think every person who, like, activates their sadism is different, you know and I do think that pretty much everybody has this in them. If you've ever gotten a rise out of making fun of someone, that's a bit sadistic. You've taken pleasure in their pain, in their discomfort. And sometimes it's not always pain, sometimes it's just discomfort. And it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. But a psychopath is not necessarily sadistic, right? Psychopathy is defined by very specific traits, and same with psychopathy, and they may or may not have sadism. Okay. Not all psychopaths are sadistic, or have let that out, or cultivated it, or anything like that. And sometimes they do, but no, they're not intrinsic to one another. You know. But yeah, in my book, How to Be a Fantastic, or sorry, How to Be a Dominant Lover, I go into a little bit about how to bring another girl in, and and it starts with kind of like peppering the idea in her mind, right? And it could be, and it starts off as something really subtle, like first, like, bringing it up just a little bit in conversation about, like, oh, like, wouldn't that be nice? Like, imagine what will be nice, like, or if, say, she has like a person that she knows who she thinks is cute, or a friend of hers that she thinks is cute, and or you just generally bring up the idea, right, of another girl, and then um you kind of put it in her mind a little bit about what would it be like to go down on a girl. Okay. And how exciting that might be, or how just curious, right? Curiosity inspiring. And then you go down on her, like, after this is, like, implanted in her mind. Right after that, you go down on her, and those thoughts are in her mind. You can even tell her, like, why don't you just imagine that it's not me? Imagine it's another girl going down, and then you go up and you kiss her. So now the taste of pussy is on her mouth, right? So she kind of can get used to that, and start making these associations around, like, feeling good, another girl, tasting, and all that sort of stuff. So you can start, like, planting it in the mind. There's so many little things you can do to just plant the idea, and start watering that just a little bit at a time, and bring them to the point of enjoying this, like, getting aroused by it. It's something, like, one avenue is you can take this in, like, a long game sort of fashion, where you're patient and you're taking your time, and you're just slowly trying to grow it over time. It's not that big of a deal you want to rush into. And then there's the other part, which is, like, I don't know, I guess, like, the red pill guys would call it dread game, where you just make it overt, like, straight up. Um, and you just, like, listen, we're having a threesome. I found a girl, or I am charging you with finding a girl, and just basically, like, trial by fire sort of thing, right? Just ripping the band-aid off and making her endure this, um, making her endure just watching, right, before getting involved, or making her get involved and you don't like involve yourself or something like that. There's like a lot of different ways you can go about this. Um, but I'm not gonna like go into all the details, but some of it is in the book, and then there's other things that I can teach you guys if you're in a relationship and you want to add another girl. There's ways, but the best I think is to get her excited about it, to be interested in getting turned on by the idea, and then she gets involved in the decision making process. And and then there's like shyness that's involved, maybe a little bit of jealousy, and which is good. Those are good. Those are good feelings. I wouldn't say like not good because they're naturally good, but good because it's useful. Good because it's a strong emotion, and strong emotions can be utilized. Um, so I wouldn't mind, uh, having my girl and another. We're in the same room, and knowing that she's jealous, and then just telling her something like, yeah, well, she doesn't like, I'll do all these sort of things with this other girl, but she's not going to get my cum. Like that's just for you. Or not letting her get involved and say, okay, well, I'm going to be messing around with this other girl, but you're going to sit in the corner. You're going to sit in the corner and watch and play with yourself. And you're not allowed to bring yourself to orgasm. You're just going to play and play and play, until the batteries wear up. Like give her like a wand or something like that, and just say like, play with that until the batteries die, and just make her watch. But but that's like a kind of torture that is not it's not that's exactly harmful, but it is like causing harm in a way. And the difference is that there is an underlying system of trust in there, right? Because if the girl has like a high level of trust involved already, then you're going to more easily be able to lead her in various directions. If she's like, okay, like I don't like the way this feels, but I trust him. I trust he's not going to use this to cause major harm and make me feel really bad or break my heart. Okay, but it will kind of break down her spirit a little bit. Okay, like she's like the numero uno, that she's like, queen, little queen bee that's treasured, that she's the number one little jewel. And I don't know. I think it's somewhat healthy every once in a while to break that spell, because the truth is that when two people get together, that's part of the excitement that really like charges people up and brings them together magnetically. It's it's part of this lingering idea that's not really spoken about, but there's an awareness that this person's just coming around like off the market, and they could have one foot still in the market, and you don't know. And a lot of assumptions happen because a lot of girls, they'll just, if she's attracted to you, then she just assumes that other girls are too. That's the interesting thing about their solipsistic little minds. And so yeah, if she feels that she's attracted, she thinks that you're hot, she thinks you're really awesome, then she has this fear that other girls do as well. And that creates this sense of dread, this sense of like, oh man, like I better do my best to get his attention and keep his attention, or just throw myself at his feet, or really work hard to maintain consistency, or whatever it is I can pick up that he's looking for. I'm going to do my best to do this. And but so situationally, that just starts off as something that exists naturally because of the nature of a new situation. You don't know what's going on, and a lot of people just assume the worst, like especially if they're attracted to that person, because in their mind, no attractive person would just be like not talking to anybody. And a lot of people make this assumption, but the fact of the matter is that most people are not talking to anybody. That's most people. Like, despite what guys say online, because guys are the ones who say the most about this shit, because girls don't really reveal what's happening with them. Whether it's like little or big, they just don't. Um, but guys talk about it the most, and they always assume the worst because they do the same thing. They're like, "Oh, I perceive her as hot, so that means she's desirable," and that definition of desirable just means just a blanket term. It's like for everybody. Like everybody must perceive her as desirable just as I do. And if I'm fucking with her, then there's got to be other guys who are fucking with her or, want to or whatever. And they have no idea. And like the most, I mean, like for the most part, like people are socially inept. Like, let's get real about this. Most people are socially inept. They communicate like shit. And both guys and girls can't fuck. They're just regular, and the regular is turning into being more of a hermit. Like, this is for men and women. Like, y'all are becoming hermits. And so to assume like, oh my gosh, like, look, she looks like this, she's doing these things online. Okay. Like, you assume that she's there in that hotel room with a guy. I mean, unless maybe you see a hand or something like that. But like for the most part, if you see a girl on vacation, she's alone or she's with her girlfriends. And that's how it is. Like, that's how it stays. You're like, no, man, these girls out here fucking. Actually, with the younger and younger generations, their sexual activity is going down. So like, I think their most recent, what is it, Gen Alpha? Gen Alpha, they're not getting down like previous generation, and the generation before that is not getting down as much as the one before that. So sexual activity is actually going down because, I don't know, values are changing, or just people are becoming weird, becoming even more socially inept and awkward. So it's like everyone's becoming awkward. So this whole notion that like these women are whores out here is really, I think, off the mark. I could be wrong, but this is just what I'm gathering based off of my judgment of people these days. Like, I talk to young women, I talk to young men, and they're fucking weird. They have a very difficult time connecting with other people in real life. They're skittish, they're very uncomfortable, and they don't feel grounded. So if they're like this, if there's like a large pool of people who are like this, it's safe to assume they're not fucking either. But people will take their perceptions and think otherwise, and that's totally fine. Let them have those perceptions, because if you're in the position, then that will make the girl, fear a little bit of her competition or losing you, and then work a little bit harder. She's like, oh shit, I don't want to pass this up. And that's fine. Totally fine. But it's even more powerful when there when there are other girls there. And then you mix it up, because if you make it enjoyable for the other girl's presence, then that really kind of throws a wrench in the whole thing, because under normal circumstances, jealousy would be present, and the other girl would be perceived as some sort of adversary, like someone who's trying to encroach on their territory, right? Now, what if you just cultivate the situation that everybody gets along, and maybe not even gets along, but even more than that, desires one another? And so now you totally mixed up the whole setup that's supposed to be there, so to speak, okay? Or what people expect to be there. And now you've turned this into something where having another person there is exciting. It feels rewarding. It feels invigorating, right? Now you turn everything upside down. So what was once repulsive is now, something to look forward to. Maybe a little bit nerve wracking, but also just something that's yeah, that's exciting. There's a little bit of anticipation, nervousness, mystery. Who knows? Um, but there's a number of ways you can go about that, and it has to do with your leadership, and it has to do with your ability to really be very much in touch with your own desires, and not being afraid of any of that. Uh, Not being afraid of her, not being afraid of her her disapproval of these sort of things, saying, "Well, I don't like that," or "That hurts my feelings," or "That makes me feel funny." It's like, okay, well, you're entitled to feel funny. Everyone's entitled to their emotions, but your emotions don't run things. Thank goodness, because guess what? My emotions don't run things either. Let's um, let's not take it there, okay? Because it's just not efficient. It's not reliable. But you don't discount them. You don't discount emotions. You just don't let them run things. There's a big difference. So let's get into these four keys, okay? The four keys to giving powerful instructions in a dynamic. And when I say dynamic, of course, people would assume that I'm talking about a BDSM dynamic, and that is the case. But let it be known that every single relationship is a dynamic. Every single relationship is a power exchange. The only difference is that in BDSM, we put it all out on the table and we discuss every detail. That's the only real difference. And then we like lean into certain things and create stuff out of that known power dynamic or power exchange. But let it be known, every single couple, whether it's same sex or opposite sex, they exchange power. It's just not talked about. It's just assumed and felt out, and like, they just kind of like cover their eyes and feel around with the other hand. It's sort of like navigating through relationships. You're like, oh, geez, how do we do this? And they're both doing this. They're both blindfolded and feeling about and seeing like what works. They bump into something and like, oh, and maybe they apologize. Maybe they're like, get the fuck out of my way. Um, you know, all sorts of like inefficient crap, right? So if you're not in a BDSM relationship, at least talk about stuff, right? At least talk about the things that you want and get the ball rolling. But let's look at this first one, all right? Of the four keys to giving powerful instructions in a dynamic or a relationship. And the first one is to remove assumptions. And this is the thing that was being talked about on Lucario's show today. Well, Lucario Miles, pardon me, where a caller came in. He was with a woman for about 8 years, and she was or he was giving her instructions, and she was not doing them properly. And there's this, and he was getting upset with her, and this is not correct. Okay, there's this old adage that says it is a poor carpenter who gets upset at his tools, or a poor craftsman who gets upset at his tools. Like, you can't blame the tools for the fucked up work. you know, it's the craftsman who's to blame. So, if you've given instructions and she's done them incorrectly, you need to double and triple check that you gave clear and concise instructions, and don't assume that you have, because this is the sort of thing. There's nuances and details that we often take for granted in our own lives when we have maybe a fuller understanding of things, or we know quite a bit about something. There's a number of things that we take for granted. And I do this in my own work, right? When I'm instructing new guys, like, I forget what it was like to be afraid of girls. I just don't remember the feeling. I don't remember nervousness or anxiety. And so I take it for granted that guys are still like actually feeling like this. And so some of my instructions, I kind of have to double back and kind of re-engineer some of my instructions or my exercises with that in mind. Okay. So removing assumptions is a key aspect, because you don't want to have any kind of guesswork. You don't want to have any elbow room for interpretation or misinterpretation. Okay. So, first, removing assumptions means not leaving anything to chance. Every instruction should be precise and explicit, leaving no room for any kind of interpretation. The more detailed you are up front, the less likely you'll have to correct or adjust later on. And so when you're giving instructions, you want to slow things down and think of them step by step. Okay. Um, and like, you're going to think that you're having to like dumb things down. And don't look at it that way. Look at it that you are making things more efficient, and you're making things more clear, and you're breaking things down in a step-by-step manner so that there's better clarity, right? Because you want them to understand, not because you think they're stupid, not because you're being condescending. It's because you want to be thorough. And so it's interesting that you might come across someone who gets offended by you um, being clear, being like extra clear with your directions, being a little bit granular. They might take offense to this because it might say to them, I think you're slow, or I think you're not paying attention, and you're just being thorough. And so you got to break things down. Okay, like if you come in, you say like you've got groceries, and you put them on the counter, and you say, "Listen, I'd like you to put away this food." And let's say she doesn't live there, right? She doesn't live with you. You just, you got groceries, and maybe you guys are like cooking something later, and you say, "Put away the groceries." And so she starts taking the food out and starts putting away the groceries. And then, 20 minutes later, you come back, you open the refrigerator, and it's fucking crazy in there. You're like, what the fuck is the butter doing in the vegetable drawer? Right. And you're like, you assumed that your common sense was her common sense. And that, like, but in her place, like, hey, the butter goes wherever it goes, like wherever it fits. Right. But in your mind, you assume that the butter goes in the little flip open door that's marked butter, and you kind of like put that in that thing, and it's like in the inside of the front door. But no, right? Like you took it for granted of the common sense, okay? And instead, she put some grapes in there, like, and you're like, what the fuck, you know? And in her mind's like, hey, it's all cold, right? Like, what's the matter? So you would have to kind of come on over and then further instruct because you weren't clear the first time. And you say, listen, like, the dairy stuff goes there, the cheese goes there, the juice goes there, the fruit goes there, the vegetables go there, the condiments go there. Various things you have their place instead of just saying, hey, put the food away, right? You put the food away and then direct her where things go. Okay. But that would also have that foresight that I was talking about beforehand, is the looking forward. Okay. So looking forward, you'd know, she doesn't live here. She doesn't know how I organize things. And I've yet to show her this the first time she's putting away my groceries. So I need to instruct her. I need to hold her hand for the first time and show her what's going on. And that's really what you do. That's being a little bit granular. That's not suggesting that she's stupid. It's just suggesting that you were not clear the first time. So the next time you do this, you're going to have to be more explicit. Okay, so that's the first one, is just removing assumptions, removing what you believe is common sense. And it's almost like you're using an AI chat, right? An AI chat, like an LM or a language model. Okay, and LML, was that what it's called? MLM, whatever. But the language models like GPT, and if you've messed with these, you come to realize that you have to be pretty specific. You have to be pretty darn specific with what you want, especially if you do anything that's having to do with image creation. You kind of have to really remove certain assumptions, right? If you have like a picture where you say like, position like a girl, like an image of a girl, wearing a bathing suit, who's on the bed. And in your mind, you're thinking on the bed means like sitting or perhaps lying down. And then the image comes out where the girl is in the bikini, she's standing on the bed. And you're like, oh, I just said on the bed. There's like way too much room for interpretation. Okay. So I say sitting on the bed, but in my mind, sitting is like reclining against the headboard. And there she is, like sitting in the very middle of the bed in like a meditation pose, with her legs folded and stuff. And you're like, what the fuck? Okay. A girl in a bikini sitting on the bed with her back leaning against the headboard. And then she does that. And then and so the girl's leaning against the headboard, but her legs are like ramrod straight. And you're like, no, not what I was thinking at all. Okay. Girl in a bikini sitting on a bed with her back against the headboard and her knees bent with her feet flat on the comforter. And now it comes out as the right image. And you're like, okay. Now I can add while she's reading a book. All right. And you can add other details. But, if you mess around with image creation, you have to be like really specific about what you want to see. And kind of, it's not dumbing down, but it's like you're getting like really thorough without being too wordy. And I think that's really important. So it's kind of like that. It's like when you're instructing your girl, it's kind of like that, where you want to be, you just want to be very clear and explicit with your instructions. All right, going on to the next one. Okay, let's see here. Number 2 is confirm understanding. This is not done enough. All right, ensure she reflects back the steps so you're aligned. Okay. Confirming understanding is a two-way street. Once you've given instructions, have her repeat or summarize them. This ensures that what you meant and what she heard match perfectly, preventing confusion before it starts. So you give instructions, say, okay, listen, I'm really busy right now, or I got to go do this thing. I want you to take this stack of envelopes, okay? And this stack, take this stack of envelopes, bring them to the post office, drop them off for me into like the drop-off box. Do not stand in line because you don't need to. There's a little drop-off box, about 15 feet to your left after you enter the room or into the building, and just drop them in there. After you do that, I'd like you to head over to my favorite coffee shop, that blah, blah, blah coffee spot, and grab me, X coffee made like this, and bring it back home. Okay. After that, I noticed that you had left dishes in the dishwasher. Please put them away. And so you're given that series of instructions and you say, okay, repeat back to me what you need to do, and see if she can like either summarize or just repeat what needs to happen. Okay. And that is a way to ensure that the person has heard you. Now, do you need to do this every single time? Probably not. But I'd say that it's a wise thing to do when you're first giving instructions, to make sure that they're on the same page. And I think after a few times, there's consistency there, and you're seeing, okay, they've followed instructions, whatever it is, whether it's fucking errands or something sexual or whatever it is. Okay, it doesn't matter. That they no longer need to repeat. Like after the pattern has been established and the trust is there, where you're like, okay, I can trust that she's listening well, and I don't have to clarify. Okay. So number 2 is sort of like this floating key aspect. Okay. It's not like an absolute necessity for every single time indefinitely, but removing assumptions is. Okay. Number 1 is an indefinite thing. You will always have to be thorough with your instructions. Okay. All right. So let's look at number 3. Yes. Number 1 is removing assumptions. That's right. And number 2 is confirm understanding. That is key, at least in the beginning. Okay. Moving on to number 3. Number 3 is provide meaning. All right. This is important, and this is not really it's not really understood or utilized very often. Okay, but I think it's important to share the purpose behind the instruction so she's more invested in the bigger picture. Providing meaning gives each instruction a bit of purpose when she understands the why behind what you're asking. Okay. It fosters trust, it fosters investment, and she'll engage more deeply when she knows how it fits the bigger picture or the dynamic or the relationship. Okay. Um, and this is not necessarily about the specific actions that are done. It's more so her following certain commands and following certain instructions. And this is not about the control aspect. It's not about completing a task. It's about in her doing this, it strengthens the entire dynamic. Okay. So now she becomes this integral part of the whole. Because if you have someone in a hole who is not following instructions, then that weakens the chip. That becomes the weakest link. Okay. So so in doing this, you want to help her understand, like, so this isn't something that is happening all the time either. Okay. Number three, the providing meaning. The providing meaning comes up in the beginning and it might have to come up intermittently. Okay. As time moves on, maybe she starts slipping, maybe there's habits or whatever, and you're reminding her of the importance of her position. Okay. um because people might say, like, well, like the king is more important than the servants, right? And that's true under a certain lens. But if all the servants just walk out, like, or if they all become injured or if they all become sick, then you've got a big problem on your hands. Okay. Who's going to till the fields, right? Who's going to make the beds? Who's going to clean this? Who's going to fix that? Like, the king can't do it all. So um so they are an important aspect to the functioning of the whole. Okay. They may not have like certain authority, but the position is necessary. Okay. It's important, and they need to know this. Okay. They don't need to be a position of power to be important. Okay. Uh, just looking at nature, the smallest insect is part of something that's really, really important. There's this whole thing with the bees. Like, bees are this tiny little thing, just one of millions of insect species. But that one species, if it gets too weak or it vanishes, it's gonna fuck up a whole bunch of other shit, you know? So even the smallest thing that's part of a whole is necessary. Okay. Um, and you could say that because of that, there is a certain element of power that they have. They just don't have power over certain things. It's just they are powerful. Okay, just by nature of being so important. So just I think it's important to provide meaning and helping her understands that, this isn't just about, having the power to give commands and getting excited about getting things done, right? Or whether it's like in or out of the bedroom. Okay. It's helping her understand, like, well, that's interesting, or that's cool, or that's fun, or invigorating, that it has more so to do with her being part of a larger system, and that her part is a necessary aspect of it. So the more on point she is, the stronger the thing becomes. Okay. She's like, her chain link becomes galvanized. Right. And, instead of just like being weakened by forgetfulness, by doubt, by not believing in oneself, by thinking I'm unimportant, like all those sort of thoughts. Okay. Because I'll tell you what, like, a lot of submissives, um, they will not believe in themselves very much. Okay. It's very common for subs to have low self esteem. And a lot of DOMs will spend time helping their self esteem, like even just come to like a place of being normal. Okay. And, this is something that I think would help them, because a lot of them will feel like they're just not important. A lot of them will feel that they don't deserve the attention or guidance of their dominant, and they'll be like, I'm not worthy." And to a certain degree, the girl is right, and then to a certain degree, she's wrong in the sense that having that attitude just drags things. Okay, like it's like trying to walk with a heavy chain wrapped around your leg. and just dragging it through the dirt. It's like, okay, like I get it. Like, yeah, you've got these feelings, but it's really slowing things down, right? Like, you can just let go of this, okay? Um, like, yeah, cool. It's been maybe part of your identity for a while, and it's very emo of you, but it's time to let it go. you know, you can still listen to that emo music or whatever the fuck you listen to to make you cry at night, but let's just kind of bring up the spirits within the dynamic, right? Because that allows everybody to do things better. Um, but yeah, my point is that that a lot of subs, and just truthfully, like a lot of girls, they'll have low self-esteem. They won't believe in themselves. They'll feel like maybe they're undeserving. Um, and this is where like sabotage stuff comes up. Well, the girl will feel like she doesn't deserve whatever it is that she's getting in the relationship, and she'll sabotage, or she'll get depressed, or whatever. And and then I think what's helpful, like with this whole like instruction thing, is this number 3, is this providing meaning, is helping her understand that what she does is helpful, and not in just completing a task, but it's helpful in a grander sense. Okay. um like, let's say recycling actually does something. And in the short term, you can look at, or the short distance, you can look at it and go, oh yeah, like we're just changing, like used aluminum into other products that are using aluminum. Cool. But if you kind of like look at the wider picture, and you could see like, well, there's just a number of people doing this has this effect that creates this other system that's very good for us. Um, yeah, that's just assuming that recycling actually does anything. I looked into that, and there's like a shitload of power that's used to create these recycled products. So I'm not quite sure. All the while, new products are being made that are not made with the recycled materials. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a benefit. But anyways, so yeah, that's just again like helping her widen her scope away from that egocentric position, of either just looking at the task and getting it done, or looking at the task and thinking it's a drag, or looking at herself and feeling that she's unworthy or whatever. It's really important for her to, once in a while, for you to bring up the topic and help her understand that there's a larger process going on here, and that she's part of this ecosystem. And the best there that she can show up means that the ecosystem is stronger. So just know that. Okay. And this is how you should be thinking as a leader. You shouldn't be just thinking about your own desires. You should be also thinking about, well, partially like what's the needs of the woman, what's the needs of the sub. And it might be things that she's not even conscious of, but also what are the needs of the relationship as a whole in order to maintain its continuity. All right. In order to maintain its cohesiveness and growth capability. All right. And so this means that, like, even you, if you can see, because part of leadership is also having powerful self-reflection, powerful self-awareness. And you can be like, realize within yourself, like, man, like my fears are cropping up. My procrastination is cropping up. I'm having like maybe like outbursts of anger, or, I'm being a spendthrift. There's all sorts of things that might come up that are causing speed bumps in an otherwise smooth dynamic. And so you're going to want to take the time to step back and go, okay, how can I deal with that? Because my job is to make sure this system is running smoothly. And that's not to assume that I am smooth. Okay. Like, if I haven't worked out my shit, if I have not worked out any kinks or whatever, I don't mean the fun, sexy kinks. I mean kinks like bends. Okay. Then that's going to cause problems. My own jealousy, my own possessiveness, right? Neediness, all right? Territorialism, like all that stuff, like that doesn't create smoothness, right? Because a lot of that stuff is based around fear. And you inject fear into your relationship, it's not gonna do much good. I mean, except for those little bits that you purposely put in there in order to make her feel a little bit of dread. But that's for like creating something, okay? That's not habitually putting fear in. That's not putting fear in that you are not in control of. Totally different. So yeah, so number 3 is provide meaning. It's important. It's important to have a good why behind everything. This is why I stress for guys to think bigger when they're considering their program, when they're considering their system by which they're going to run a relationship. Because, well, and I don't blame you guys, but for the most part, it's sex driven. That's all it is. It's sex driven and pain aversion driven. That's pretty much how guys run most relationships. They're like, give me the sex I want so I can feel emotionally safe and prevent anything that might make me feel uncomfortable so that I can remain emotionally safe. Like that's pretty much most guys' programs right there in a nutshell. And that is not a program. Like there's no development from that. It's just maintenance. That's all it is. There's no forward movement. There's no aspiration. Like there's nothing to emerge from this, all right? Through like consistency of operating this way. Consistently operating this way will just produce more of the same. Because you can't progress off of fear, right? You can't progress off of possessiveness. You can't progress off of fearing in your ego death. Like that's, you just can't move forward. It doesn't work that way. So really to be good with a dynamic, to be good with your program and good with your leadership, you have to be willing to get out of the way. Like you have to be willing to get out of the way of the program. Like your issues and your bullshit can't stand in the way of things either. Just like she would need correction for something that's standing in the way, as do you. So this requires having a great level of self-awareness and a willingness to, just face your ego, face the things. And you don't have to like face them with her or something like that. That's not necessary, but really to face them on your own and just kind of come to terms with yourself and like, damn, like I'm doing this because not for the betterment of the relationship, but so that I can feel safe, so that I don't have to worry. Like that's not an honorable thing to say, you know what? You're not able to go anywhere without me. Like that's completely based around fear. That's not about the preservation and growth of your dynamic. Not at all. You might say that it is just to justify it. But if I know guys and, knowing that they're not developed, seasoned, grounded, mountainous leaders, okay? For the most part, they're not. Then it must be motivated by fear. Fear, discomfort, which leads to grasping for control of variables that might cause you pain. Might cause you pain. So this is why guys grasp for control around girls, because they're trying to prevent any sort of variable that might harm them. It's adolescent, very adolescent. And this is how like a young teen might work when he's invested in a girlfriend in high school, All right, so let's look at number 4. Number 4 here is confirming completion. Now, this is something that's ongoing, okay? So number 1 is ongoing, which is basically being thorough. And number 4 is ongoing, which is confirming completion. So review each step after the whole thing is done, ensuring clarity and celebrating the effort. Finally, confirming completion in detail ensures the loop is closed. After the task is done, walk through each step, ensuring clarity and correctness. So you both end with confidence and mutual satisfaction. Okay, so both 1 and 4, I'm removing assumptions and providing clarity and confirming completion, both of these are designed to make sure that you're both on the same page. That's what that means. You're on the same page. So you say, listen, I want you to take this stack of letters, go to the post office, use the drop box that's about 15 feet away from the main doors. And then after that, go to the coffee shop, give me my favorite, blah, blah, blah. Bring that home and then put away the dishes that are in the dishwasher. And um, and then she would repeat the thing, right? Giving like clear instructions, make sure she understands. Um, and then that's the confirming the understanding. So if you haven't worked up the trust that she is able to consistently carry out whatever sort of instructions, whether it's in or out of the bedroom, doesn't matter. So let's say that hasn't been built up. So she confirms the understanding. And then after these things are done, she's like, okay, Mr. J, I'm finished. That's not going to be good enough. I want to hear a thorough, not like necessarily like a move for move breakdown, okay, but a thorough summary. Okay. So just saying, Mr. J, I'm done. That's not good enough. Say, Mr. J, I've dropped off the letters. I've gotten your favorite coffee, blah, whatever drink is waiting for you on the counter, and the dishes have been put away. Like that's enough of a summary, right? I don't need like all the details in between. That's not required, but that's enough, or at least for me. Okay. That's what I'm satisfied with. So, so confirming understanding, and then, or I'm sorry, confirming completion. And then again, if this is something new for her, you can praise her for being a good girl, praise her for her, like her get to itness, and help her understand the meaning. Okay. And it's easier for someone to get step 3 to understand and kind of bring that in after they're feeling good already. So they complete the thing, and now's the time where you hit them with that. And say, that's great, right? Good girl, you followed instructions perfectly. That's awesome. That's so fucking sexy. I need you to understand that this is not just about me giving commands and you following them. You also need to understand that you are an important part of this dynamic. And then without you, things can fall apart because there's just too much happening. With your presence here, it involves a more seamless and more smooth and streamlined operations of everything. And I need you to understand that how your position and your presence is important. And I think this, when you express that to her, she's going to feel her value. She's going to feel that you need her to a degree, right? That her presence means something. Okay. Unless you've got a different sort of situation where she's just basically a set of holes and you just kind of like keep her in the closet and that's it. And you just take her out when you want to use her. And there's certainly dynamics that are like that, where it's just pure objectification. And that's fine. Like you can do whatever you want. For me though, I like the idea of servitude. I like the idea of slavery, servitude. This is, I don't know. I just think there's something really cool about it. Besides just having this like sexual doll that you can kind of play with whenever you want, like a little G.I. Joe figure. So yeah, that's the 4 keys to giving powerful instructions. Okay. Remove assumptions, confirm understanding, provide meaning, and confirm completion. All right. Maybe 3 should be number 4. So it should be like confirm completion and then provide meaning. But, these don't necessarily have to be in order, but these are necessary parts. Excuse me. All right. Cool. Glad you enjoyed it. Yes. Glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. Yeah. Trying to change the format. All right. Little less hoodie, a little bit more buttons and shit. What does it mean to truly lead someone, and how do you develop leadership skills? Well, that's a good question. Um, to truly lead someone, I think, is to bring out the best in them. I think that's when you come across a good leader. I've had some good leaders in my time. I would consider them teachers, and they've brought out the best in me. Like they've either like unearthed or pushed or helped me discover levels within myself, or kind of helped me like push past certain things in order to grow. And this I think is a mark of a good leader that helps people grow, helps people discover certain things about themselves, and helps them evolve. If people are not evolving, under your tutelage, under your guidance, then you're probably doing something wrong, right? Because that means things are stagnant. And so your second part here is, how do you develop leadership skills? It all starts with the individual. It starts with the self, okay? Because it's going to be really bad. And we've all experienced someone who's like this. That's basically do as I say, not as I do. And they're sitting there like, drinking whiskey, and they're like, "Hey, man, I don't want you to drink." Like, what the fuck? Why am I going to take your advice? Or why would I listen to you as an authority? You know, it's like going to like a fat personal trainer. It's harder to trust them. Even if they're telling you the right thing, like, yeah, if an alcoholic's telling you not to drink while they've got a bottle in their hands, like, sure, they are telling you the truth, but it's harder to believe them. It's harder to like, I don't know, have that sentiment sink in and really touch you, you know? Um, so so it's not going to be great if you don't lead yourself very well. Let's say you have no impulse control, you've got shitty habits, you've got low self-esteem, uh, you you don't ride on any sort of codes or principles. You don't have any rules for your life. You don't have any rules for yourself. You just kind of like float by the seat of your pants through everything. Everything's wishy-washy. There's no direction. There's no decisiveness. There's fear. There's anxiety. There's overthinking. All kinds of just like crappy stuff. Okay, all like compiled together. And then you have this desire, which I think is natural for guys to have a desire to lead, especially a woman. Um, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling having somebody look up to you for guidance, for and looking up to you, even if they're not looking for guidance, but with trust. Like they're like, yeah, I trust whatever you say, whatever you do. I'm going to take it as truth, as my truth. Like that's a great feeling. Um, so so I think this is something that's naturally within guys to want this, right? And that's great. But you have no right to be like exercising this desire when you haven't led yourself in any kind of meaningful way. It doesn't make sense. It's hypocritical, and you can't be a good leader and be a hypocrite. Like that's just dumb. That's like 1 + 1 = 3 type stuff. Okay, so the best way to develop leadership skills is to lead yourself. That's the best way. And then once you're past that, it's looking at um, and understanding the needs and desires and goals of other people. Um, because it depends on the context, right? So if it's like in a relationship sort of thing, that has to be included into your desires and your goals. Because like let's say like they have a goal of getting back into dance. Like maybe they danced ballet when they were a kid and they're like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do ballet and never had the time. It's like, well, we're carving out time and you're gonna do this, twice a week. Um, I found a place that's willing to teach adults, and you're gonna do this twice a week for 3 hours, right? 3 hours each day, like each of those days, Tuesday and Thursday. If it's been paid for, made the schedule, and you're gonna go. And it's like sort of like because if it left to their own devices, they would have kind of put it off and put it off and like, oh, I don't know, like, geez, it'd be like real uncomfortable and like, gee, I don't have any time. Like, even though they do, like, there's people come up with all sorts of like excuses to like not take action, to not do things constantly. Okay. Because we love comfort. Like humans love comfort, even if that comfort sucks. Like, damn, I'm getting fat. I'm like getting like none of my goals are happening. Like all these just things, like my body's starting to ache and whatever. My sleep is terrible. Um so so they have like all these things and it's like what are you doing? Like just take action. Make it happen. Okay. Um and so you gotta have to like on one hand, have a good handle on your own, you're like leading yourself. But depending on the context, you're going to have to develop a certain kind of sensitivity to understanding what another person needs in order for them to grow. And it might be something that they enjoy, and it might be something that they don't enjoy. you know, and I learned that sort of stuff with a number of my various teachers. Both like the martial arts teachers, visual arts teachers, coaches will do this to a certain degree. They'll make you do all kinds of crazy shit with your body just to make you a better, stronger player. Okay. And and you may not see it, you might not feel it, but then like as the season goes on, like you're running faster and harder without getting tired. It's like, yeah, it's because all those damn suicides up the hill, that your lacrosse coach made you do at 6 in the morning before school. Because when I was growing up, like our teams practiced, like some of our teams, when the coach was insane, like my lacrosse coach, they would have you practice before school. It's fucking dark and it's cold. Well, not that cold, but yeah, it's chilly, right? It's not cold, but yeah, it's insane doing that. My swim coach was like that too. Fuck, man. And swimming's a winter sport, so now it's like really dark and really fucking cold, and you're getting in the water to swim for an hour. But anyways, so yeah, it's also like just seeing what's needed and not letting their discomfort with what needs to be done as a something that makes you avoid it. It's like, oh man, I don't know. She's not going to be happy. It's like, well, yeah, things that make us grow typically don't make us happy. Well, in the moment, you know, like I can't think of anything. I mean, let's just like psychedelic drugs. Those can make you happy and they do, some wonderful things for your brain, in terms of development. So I hope that answers your question. Yes. The yes, the grand unified program. Oh, hey, there she is. There's that little shit. Yes. She's been misbehaving lately. A perilous journey. This is good. Yes. Just on a perilous journey to self knowledge and enjoying the sights and sounds along the way. Yes. Cool, man. Um, yeah, it is a perilous journey. And we can look at these things in that way. And but I think if you want to do that, like kind of adds like a poetic like a poetic spin on your life. And that can give you some extra fuel, just like sprinkling a little magic on, how you perceive things. That you're on some sort of perilous journey. But the thing is that it's like that, and I think, oh geez, who was that writer? And he basically came up with like the hero's journey, right? What was his name? And then George Lucas like basically stole his whole shit, or not stole it, but like incorporated his whole thing and made the Star Wars movies basically about that. Um, the who can't remember his, oh, Joseph Campbell. That's right. 12-stage narrative archetype defined by Joseph Campbell in The Hero of with a Thousand Faces in 1949. And so it goes that there's the first stage is the ordinary world, right? The hero is introduced into their normal, mundane life. And this is where you see Luke, right? In the first released movie in 1977, where he's just like this kid working on this farm, you know? Then there's the call to adventure, right? That happens in the story as well. A problem or a challenge arises, disrupting the ordinary world. Okay. Then there's the refusal of the call, where the hero hesitates or fears leaving the familiar. Number 4 is meeting the mentor. And then it's this guide provides advice, training, or confidence, right? And this is like Obi-Wan, this is Yoda, and all that stuff. Then there's crossing the threshold. And this is the hero commits to the journey and enters the special world. All right. And this is characterized by that moment when Luke was battling, or I'm sorry, he was on Dagobah, right? The swamp jungle planet training with Yoda. And Yoda's like, oh, here's another part of your training. You got to go down that dark, jungly corridor, right? Where the vines are like making a little hallway. And he's like, nah, he's like, you're not going to need your weapons going in there. And Luke's like, yeah, right. And so he like takes his lightsaber and he's walking and it gets into this weird slow motion dream state. And then like Darth Vader fucking comes out of nowhere. I remember as a kid, I was like, wait, how did Darth Vader just appear? And for years, that whole scene just completely boggled my mind. And they cross blades, and then he knocks him down, and his mask just kind of explodes a little bit and turns to smoke, and the smoke clears, and it's his own face sitting inside Darth Vader's helmet. And that even confused me even more when I was a kid. But that was basically him meeting his shadow, right? And this is the number 6, right? The tests the allies and the enemies. And this is also where then Luke is like, you know what, I gotta go, meet my friends. I have to help them, blah blah blah. I gotta fight the Empire, all this stuff, and that's where like the adventuring really kind of twist the throttle. And then there's like the approach to the innermost cave. The hero prepares for the essential, most dangerous crisis. And then there's the ordeal, number 8, a central life or death crisis where the hero faces their greatest fear. Perhaps that's when he had to battle Vader. Number 9 is the reward, seizing the sword, which is the hero survives the ordeal and gains a knowledge or a special treasure. And then there's the road back. The hero begins the journey back to the ordinary world, often pursued. Number 11, there's resurrection. The hero faces a final high-stakes test that purifies him, and often there's a final battle. And then there's 12. This is return with the elixir. The hero returns home, using their reward to improve their original world. And there's I think like the story of Odysseus was like this. I think there's like a number of Greek stories where it had this similar pattern, like going out into the world and meeting this thing, trials and battles and friends, and then like having this ultimate peak and then kind of circling back. And it's just this big circle, right? Which is the hero's journey. And so I think this is like what a lot of men go through, right? And you can kind of like poeticize it a little bit and say that you are having you're going through your own hero's journey, right? Where it's cyclical, and there can be smaller cycles within the larger cycle, right? Because you have the largest cycle, which is basically your entire life, right? And then there can be smaller cycles within that, with like miniature hero's journeys within the big arc of the hero's journey. It's just, I don't know. It's just a great, like, interesting aspect of life. I think it's incredibly interesting. Very, very interesting. But yeah, I'm glad you're on your perilous journey. Yes, Campbell. Yep. You clarify leading to plan and planning to lead. Seems like a whole spectrum of program control. Well, I think I don't know, maybe it's just me making assumptions in my leadership, but it's right there in the words, right? Leading to plan, right? So I look at that as um like preparation to enact a plan. Okay. You're leading toward a plan, and planning to lead. So it's basically this whole idea that your mind is in the right place, leading to plan and planning to, or leading the plan. That's what it is leading the plan and planning to lead. This mindset that I plan to lead, and then you actually lead the plan. You put it into action, right? So a lot of this has to do with just basically having trust in yourself first and foremost. And so it's like you can't trust yourself while you're doubting yourself. Okay. It's very common sense, but you'd be surprised how uncommon common sense is. So yeah, you're gonna want to learn to trust yourself if you want to be a good leader. And it doesn't mean you're going to be a perfect leader, right? Um, it means that you're good, and trusting yourself doesn't mean that it's always going to work out because you don't have omniscience. I'm sorry. Being a man and being a god are two separate things. They're kind of close. There's some harmonics between the two, but there is a distinct difference. And one of them is that you're not omniscient. You cannot. You don't have you don't have all knowledge through all time. Okay. So um but it largely has to do with having a strong amount of trust and faith in yourself. And it's funny that a lot of people will have great faith in things outside of them, but they can't put it in themselves. Isn't that crazy? Like they'll have great faith in, the military if they're a soldier. They'll have great faith in their boss. They'll have great faith in their religion. They'll have great faith in their God. They'll have like that's what I find really, really crazy. Okay. I understand like I'm a non-believer type, so that's why it makes sense to me in this way. But you've got this like undefined, amorphous, somewhat vague, but somewhat defined, extremely powerful entity that controls all of reality. And there is such a great faith in this, yet you've never smelled it, seen it, touched it, tasted it, experienced it in any sort of way beyond somewhat of a perhaps like a strong emotional reaction. Like some people, they feel like they've felt the presence of or whatever. I'm not discounting that. Like people have experiences all the time. Um, I mean, with the help of strong drugs, I've seen and experienced all kinds of incredible things that weren't necessarily there, but I fundamentally experienced them. Um, so I'm not saying that it's there, but for all intents and purposes, everything that like or your tools to know something, are not able to be utilized to know this thing. Yet there is tremendous faith that it's real. Tremendous. Like people have died over this. People have gotten into bloody fights over this. Relationships have been crushed and decimated because of this, like between good friends, between family members. And the same person will doubt themselves. Isn't that crazy? You would doubt yourself, the thing that you've been with since the day you were born, looking at him, smelling him, tasting him, touching him, hearing him, having your own internal dialogue with him every day, going through all kinds of life experiences, all sorts of, think of all the experiences you've had since you were born. Countless, countless experiences, both good and bad and neutral. Yet there's no faith. There's no faith in that thing that you've been with since you were born. But there's this thing, whatever that thing is, that's undefinable, but seems to be everywhere. that no one has been able to pin down since the beginning of like thought. Okay, it's still debated, yet you have supreme, like, yes, this is the fucking thing. Why can't you do that with yourself? That same level of conviction. And then what's weird is that if you do, you'll feel guilty about it. You won't believe yourself. You'll doubt. You'll be like, no, 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 no. There's, and you'll give yourself good reason not to have faith. But if I give you good reason not to have faith in that invisible, all powerful, undetectable deity, that's no different than a reality that doesn't have one of those deities, you'd fight me tooth and nail until you're bloody in the face. Isn't that weird? Well, you can't look in the mirror and say, I love you. I respect you. You are the best thing that's ever happened to me. Minor journeys within the main one. Yeah. 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 But it's just, I don't know. It's just, you got to kind of just like look at all of that and be like, yeah, like I'd rather have this than like the nothing, you know, like nothingness. I think it's a, I don't know if I would call it a blessing, but I don't know. There's just a very unique thing about experience, right? Just like experiencing life. I don't have a life that's perfect. Um, and but I was sitting around today and I was like sitting there and I'm like, man, like this is like this reality of mine is gonna end. Like I'm getting older and I'm gonna keep getting older. Like I'm like looking like old people on TV. I'm like, that's gonna be me. Like my skin's gonna be like hanging off of my skull at some point. Like those bags that are like way down here, you know what I mean? Like ears that are like 6 inches long, like old men, like their ears just keep growing and growing and growing. Like, dude, you're like Dumbo with those fucking ears. What's up with that? Like, that's gonna be me, you know? Um, yeah, I'm just looking forward to like yelling at kids to get off my lawn. That's what I'm looking forward to. Or spending the rest of my days on a cruise ship. Because that shit, although it's pricey, is cheaper than living in an old folks home. You can just live on a cruise ship. And, like I looked at the cost, and it's cheaper to live on a cruise ship. And they've got music, they got good food, they've got entertainment, they've got. I mean, they don't have surgeons, but they got like doctors on board. Everyone's super friendly, right? Because it's their job to be friendly and outgoing, right? Those motherfuckers who work at like these old folks' home, to them, it's just a job. They don't give a fuck, you know. And like the amount of like abuse stories that I've heard, like old people being like abused or neglected in these homes. It's like fuck that. No, I want to go to the place where the chick's got nice bouncy perky tits, and she's got this big fake smile, and she's like, "How you doing today, Mister Adams?" Like, just give me my coffee and cognac, you know. Like that's where it's at. And then I think you have to like leave. You can't like stay there indefinitely. So like they'll come to port, you have to like leave for a few days. So I'll just like go to a hotel or some shit, spend a couple days at the hotel, and then go back on the cruise ship and just keep going. Much cheaper than those old folks home that have like terrible service, terrible food, and the checkers are probably gonna be missing pieces. Yes. Uh, what animal? What the hell could I? I don't know. Is there probably humans because we're the only ones that consider masculinity. We are the only animal that considers masculinity because most animals don't really think all that much, right? They don't think in like conceptual terms the way we do. At least that hasn't actually been demonstrated. So I'm just going to assume that they don't. I mean, I know dolphins are supposed to be really smart, and crows are supposed to be really smart, and mollusks like octopi are really smart. Those are my favorite. That's my favorite animal, the octopus. Have you seen their fucking camouflage, dude? where they can kind of like come down and they like go "Zoom," and like land on a piece of coral, and their whole fucking body becomes exactly like coral in like texture and color. It, it's amazing. I always thought it would be really cool if like you could take some of the coolest like genetic traits from certain creatures and try to bonds them with human DNA. So you can like I could go up against this, this backdrop and be like, and like my skin and everything kind of looks and it looks like the texture of this shit, the same color, same pattern. That'd be dope. Yeah. I'd probably become like a professional thief if I had that. But no, I don't think anyone thinks about masculinity except humans. And I'll tell you what, excuse me, man. I need to plug in the humidifier 'cause my heat is really dry. And you can hear it in my voice. So it's like drying on my sinuses and all this shit. Anyways, so as I was saying, humans are the only ones that think about masculinity. And the ones that think about it the most are the ones that are typically not masculine. like so it's in your best interest to just not think about it because it's just conceptual nonsense and just become a fucking man that you can count on and that other people can count on, and that's it. Right, being reliable, competent, not in like every aspect of life but like in a few things. Be competent and reliable in a few areas of life, like for yourself so that you can develop that trust in oneself and trusting in your instincts, trusting in your decision making, even if you make mistakes and go, oh, fuck, that was a bad choice. I've made tons of bad choices in my life. And like not investing in crypto when I did, pulling out my money and thinking it was a scam. I would probably have, I'd have, I did the calculations by this point. Even if I didn't add anything, I probably have about 1.2 million. Actually, not now because it's taking a huge dip. But yeah. But anyways, before that dip, when it was up around what 110 or 120 or something like that, Bitcoin. Um, yeah, if I just kept what I put in there the first time and never took it out, I probably have about 1.2 million before this recent crash. That's crazy. You know, I've made terrible, like accidental, like investment choices where I've lost a whole bunch of money. So that I lost money that I didn't win, right? That I didn't get, and I've lost money from making bad investments, bad choices. Uh, listening to certain people that I thought were giving me good advice. Okay, and you're gonna make mistakes like that. Like you're gonna make bad judgment calls, and hopefully that you're not gonna get hurt. Other people aren't gonna get hurt, but you can't be a man that people rely on who has never extended himself. That's it. Like you, and in order to extend yourself, you place yourself at risk. Now, it doesn't mean that you should be making reckless choices, okay, and just being wild out here. Um, it's about making balanced choices, thoughtful, mindful choices that do extend you, right? There is perhaps some element of risk, but it's something that you're willing to take. What? Huh? You guys still here? My signal just popped out for a second there. That was weird. Okay, but there's just something about that, and that's something that um, really you should be more concerned about rather than fucking what animals like animals have masculinity. Like that's like But yeah, I think you're a young dude. Icebergs. Yeah, you enjoy the things that most guys say sucks. No gyms, no earbuds, no pre-workout, no athletic attire, fitness outside day or night, any weather, wearing regular clothes. This warps minds. Yeah. I like working out in regular clothes too. Unfortunately, I do like going to a gym. I sometimes use the parks around here in Brooklyn. Um, but the thing is that like sometimes the gym give you like they hassle you for not wearing gym attire, which is really strange. Like I went in and um, I was wearing boots and BDUs and just plain t-shirt. And like one of the floor people are like, hey, you're not supposed to wear those, you know. I'm like, what? The BDUs? Like, yeah, yeah, that's not proper workout attire. I'm like, so this is good for the US Marines, but it's not good enough for fucking crunch. Really? Get out of here. He's like, oh, well, because I know he didn't have the authority to throw me out. He just had the authority to be a little asshole, right? So I'm like, get the fuck out, man. Yeah, well, in guns. What reminds me, like your comment here, I forget the dude's name, but he's like one of the strongest dudes out there. I think he's somewhere in like Europe, maybe the Netherlands. The dude is fucking enormous. He's like 6'8" and pushing like 300 pounds, but he's not fat at all. Like he's just an enormous human. Like he's not exactly jacked, like in a bodybuilder sense, but but he's uh but he's just big. You know, he's big, but he's not fat. And he is so big that he has to make his own workout equipment. And it's just like big fucking like hoisting just giant shit. Like things that he can just think up and build. And he works on just like flannel, like out, and he's always outdoors, and just like dragging giant rocks with a chain or some shit. Um, lifting tree trunks like above his head because they just don't make like barbells with enough plates for this dude. Like that's so he just works out like it's not like this is farm or something. And the guy is massive. I wish I could remember his name. And I don't think he ever really shows his face either. Like I think most of his videos are with the camera behind him. And like seriously, like his back is like 5 feet across and 7 feet long. It's crazy. It's like what the fuck? I could put like a mural across his back. He's that fucking big. Yeah, he's enormous, dude. And he just wears like like a plaid flannel, old fucking shit jeans and clodhoppers. That's what where I grew up in upstate New York. That's what we call like just big shit kicking boots. That don't look good at all. We call them clodhoppers or shit kickers. But that was his thing. It's like lumberjack sort of style. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I prefer the outdoors. It's just when you're in a city environment, it's you got parks and then you have a gym. But yeah, I prefer being around nature. I always like those gyms, those like outdoor gyms that I saw in like these videos of like dudes in like South Africa, and they have like homemade gym equipment, like made out of like they'll have like engine blocks, like partial engine blocks on either end of like a steel rod, and that's their bench. It's like they can't like change the weight. There's one weight, and if you can't lift it, well, you're just gonna have to keep trying until you can. um, they'll have like tires and shit. They'll have like gears, just like a bunch of machinery, like machinery parts, as their means of like making this gym. And I saw that, and I was like, that's fucking cool, dude. That's really cool stuff, you know. But I'm hoping that this idea about leadership makes a lot of sense, right? The way we've been angling on this, because I think that a lot of guys they kind of look at this stuff and they're like thinking that they have to be like this boss dude, that like a leader has his chest out and he's no, like his leader has his spine straight for sure, right? His balls have dropped, meaning that he has the courage to he's got the courage to back up what his spine is straight for. Okay, and but it's leadership is not this bold, loud thing. Okay, leadership at the very core of it is based around trust. Being able to give commands requires that. It requires a good foundation of trust, and it starts with you. It starts with trusting yourself and allowing other people to sort of follow that vibe. Like they say, like, well, how do you expect someone to love you if you can't love yourself? Well, the same exact thing holds true for trust. If someone can feel that you're untrustworthy, they're not going to put their trust in you. Like, and could you imagine someone who trusts themselves, but other people find untrustworthy? Like that doesn't compute, right? Like, how could that possibly occur? That they trust themselves, but people, well, I guess, well, I don't know. I could see how that could be the case. Like, if you've got somebody who's just really a terrible person, they trust themselves, but they're terrible, and but other people will not trust them. But I'm kind of like excluding these extremes. They're just looking like regular people, with regular lives, regular goals, and things like that. And I think that if you put trust in yourself, you're more likely to have other people put their trust in you, because they're just gonna get the sense. You get a sense around people who doubt themselves, and you get a sense around people who have conviction about themselves, and not in some like big, like energetic way, but just something that is known. It's just this thing that just is known. Like, there's a knowingness about them, and it feels different. It feels totally different being around these people, that they just feel comfortable in their own skin. Now, you're not going to come across someone who trusts themselves but feels uncomfortable, right? They're not going to have anxiety. They're not going to be tense. They're not going to be tense with what's inside them, right? It's That's not what's going to happen. So, um, like I said, like it all starts with the self. It's getting the self in order, and really, like, once all this starts really making sense, like, all this other shit just becomes a lot easier. It really does. This is really what's meant when you say getting out of your own way. Like, I hear people say this all the time. I just need to get out of my own way. Out of my own way. That's what this means. And, like, so when you start trusting yourself, you are getting out of your own way. You start being authentic. You start listening to yourself, like your smarter self, right? That says, "Hey, man, maybe you should put that thing down," right? Like, maybe you should put down the video games. Maybe you should think about developing your business better. Maybe you should think about developing your career better. Maybe you should be able to see your dick when you take a piss, right? Like, your belly shouldn't be that big, all right? Now, maybe you should get off fucking apps and start interacting with real people with a heartbeat in front of you that you can see. Just a little bit. Like, that's what's like pushing you into authenticity, by pushing yourself into your areas of discomfort, right? Just like what Guns is saying, like doing the things that most people feel uncomfortable doing. This is what will separate you from other people. And unfortunately, it's somewhat of a lonely existence, but it's not a loneliness that ever really hurts. It's just an acknowledgement that you are alone. And you can, take that for whatever you will, but um, it's it's a solitary existence. That's what it is. Manhood is not about. It's not built on camaraderie. You might come across guys. You might come across guys that where you just kind of know, and you can kind of tip your hat to each other, give a little chin nod, you know, and and that's it. But that's all that's necessary, you know. But there's only like, man, buddies, like it's when you were a kid, you're like, yeah, let's get together with the buddies and just like hang out. I don't know. I get together with other men when we're doing something, like there's a project, or I don't know, I guess I do have my thing with motorcycles. So, but again, that's like a solitary thing. It's not like I'm riding with anybody in the back. Like my friend is on the back, like hugging me. No, he's on his own bike, like in his own solitary world, right? We're just solitary together, right? If we're on like a group ride or at the track together, like um, like your own journey, the inner journey stuff. Like you're alone, and it's nothing to be sad about. It's nothing to be anxious about, right? It's just something you need to accept, like with pure neutrality, total neutral attitude. And the more you can look at things you know that Guns would characterize as sucking, right? And that's why he put quotes around it, because it's like sucks, but it doesn't really suck. It's a thing. That's it. You know. But because so many guys are having the reality determined or gone through a major filter of emotion in order to make sense of it, it sucks. But really, it's just a thing. We come to conclusions and interpretations of things with these filters about certain things. But without those, it's just something that's happened or it's something that's happening. And that's it. There's no up or down opinion or this or that or no feeling. It's just something. That's it. So the more you can kind of move your just over time, it's not something you just make a big giant click into, but just over time, you slowly move yourself towards the center, to the place of neutrality. Okay. So I remember when we were when we were at the temple, we always walked around like this. We had our hands like this, but right in the front of our solar plexus. We'd always walk around like that. Right. Um, and well, it's for a number of reasons, but just brought me back doing that. But you want to move yourself to center, okay, and just stay there, right? And don't get pulled this way or that because of something happens that maybe you've got an opinion over, or something that you feel strongly about, or whatever the fuck. It's not that important, okay? What's important is that you don't get pulled or pushed. That you are just able to maintain neutrality. That you're able to just stay centered, grounded, like a mountain, just sitting there, just being. Like your energy just sits. It doesn't get pushed or pulled. Okay. It doesn't get shook. And again, not out of resistance, right? By presence. And this is something that you can take with you in every single aspect of life. And in doing so, it drastically reduces your emotional strain, because what it does is it drastically reduces your emotional involvement. It doesn't make you less emotional. It just makes you less emotionally involved. Less tethers pull out, right? Like an astronaut on a spacewalk and has got that tether that goes back to the space station or the ship. There's less tethers. There's less emotional tethers. So you can still like experience the whole range of emotions, okay? But it just passes. It just passes through. There's no like pulling you after it passes through and it grabs a hold of something. You're like, oh, you get lurched off of your square. No, it just passes through and you bye bye. Okay, that situation's done. It's over, right? And this allows you to remain in pretty much a state of clarity. Like your mind's not clouded by, well, overthinking. It's not clouded by anxiety. It's not clouded by your emotions, because the emotions they're transient, just like everything else. Comes in, goes out. Like it's not that big of a deal, right? It becomes a big deal when you attach, when you grasp, and it starts growing roots, and that's when it becomes a problem. Okay, so so this sort of neutrality, like being able to just stay centered, stay balanced, and stay relaxed. Every situation, like whether it's with your family, whether it's with a personal injury, um, or something to do with your finances, whether it's up or down, okay? Whether it's with a lover, whether it's with your siblings, coworkers, your boss, your business. It's not it's not that big of a deal. Like none of it is. Okay. That doesn't mean it's all meaningless. It just means it's not that big of a deal. And like I'm reminded of that old Chinese story, the parable about the farmer, right? And I'm sure you're familiar with it, where the farmer, his son does that thing where what's like something with horses, and his son like gets a horse, and then the horse bucks him off, and his neighbor is like, "Oh, that's such bad luck," right? It's always bad luck, good luck, bad luck, good luck, and every response that the farmer has, he's like, "Yeah, maybe," right? So I think the first one was that like his son like accidentally let his horse run off, and the horse was lost, and the son was like, "Damn it, like fuck," he was all pissed off, and then the neighbor was like, "Oh, that's such bad luck that you lost your horse." And the farmer's like, "Yeah, maybe." And a couple days later, the horse comes back, but it's got like two wild horses with it. And the neighbor's like, "Hey, that's such good luck." And he's like, "Maybe." And the son was trying to, break one of them, and it ends up bucking him, and he breaks his leg. Like the son breaks his leg. And the neighbor's like, "Oh, what bad luck." Maybe. And then like the soldiers come to town because a war is about to happen, looking for young men to draft. They can't draft a kid with a broken leg. So his son's not going to go off to war to likely die. And so he's like, "Oh, that's such good luck." He's like, "Well, maybe," because now he has to tend to everything by himself because his best helping hand is now an invalid. So, um, so that's what I mean about basically having this mindset behind the farmers. Maybe, right? And be like, "Oh, that's great," because you don't want to be like the tennis player chasing the ball from this right to left, like back and forth. Like that's what your opponent's goal is to get you chasing that ball left and right to create the biggest gap and opening possible in order to score. When the most advantageous position on the court is to be in the middle so that you can be the most versatile. Okay. You have the most choice. And it's the same. It's the same with your mentality, same with your attitude, same with your emotions, and being able to just be chill, just relax, just smolder there in the middle, like a lit piece of incense or a cigarette butt, right? It just smolders. It's not on fire, it's not out, you just chill. And, don't take things personally, right? Because like, really, is that really you that's getting so pissed off? Is that air you're really breathing right now? When Morpheus said that to Neo, you think that's air you're breathing right now? I got to show the first Matrix movie to my son. Yeah, he's not too interested, but like when he gives me a chance, his mind gets blown. Like recently, I showed him the first RoboCop movie with Peter Weller, and he was like, "That movie was fucking awesome." I'm like, yes, that's the power of late '80s movies. Well, like mid to late '80s. Yeah, man, that's some good shit. That first RoboCop movie, dead or alive, you're coming with me. Oh man. Yep. Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yep. Bodhidharma. Yep. It's a salute, but it's also like when you're in the temple, you're basically saying to the other students, like, "I'm here peaceably. I'm not here to like while we're all here learning combat, I'm standing before you with peace." Right. And then you just kind of like do this like all day long. Like your hands doesn't fucking leave this position. It was crazy at first, and then after a while, you just kind of forget that your hand is like always here, always. You're like brushing your teeth, and then you have to take a piss. You're like, "Oh fuck." Anyways, um, Justin, what is arrested development? And what are some signs? Well, arrested development. If you look at the words, arrested means to stop, and development. Well, I don't think that needs explanation. So That's what arrested development is. It's stopped development. And signs of arrested development is when time goes on, but the person is either psychologically or emotionally stunted. They're they have not progressed. They have not matured. They've not grown. And the thing is, with human development, it often requires going through difficulty. And that's not to say that all difficulty will create development. Okay, it's a certain type of development, or I'm sorry, certain type of difficulty, which is basically the challenging of identity, challenging of ego. Um, yeah, pretty much those. And and when those things get challenged, that's when it's difficult. That's when it hurts. That's when your concept of self starts kind of rippling, and and it doesn't feel good. It really fucking doesn't. And depending on the setup, depending on the architecture, messing with it can cause a lot of pain. Okay, because maybe there's so much riding on this identity that once you realize that it's just a bunch of fucking smoke, it really throws some people for a loop. Okay, but it's necessary. It's necessary to have that little death. Um, to just really, not just theoretically come to the understanding, but really viscerally feel the falling away of who you thought you always have been. And realizing that like your identity is just a manufactured joke. It's meaningless. It's you know, there's this Japanese word, the toronoko, which means paper tiger. Like your identity is like that. You know, there's a reason why the Greeks, I think it's Greeks or the Latin, maybe it's Latin, persona. Yeah, I think that's Latin. Um, personality, which people often like associate with identity, comes from the word persona, which, if I remember correctly, is the name of these giant masks that had megaphones on them attached to them that they would use a long time ago, like back when people spoke Latin, and by actors. And they would be at like the very bottom of the amphitheater, right? Because the stage of an amphitheater is way low and the seats are way up above, like circling around. Okay, and and so for the people that were far away, they had these enormous masks with these megaphones on there, so the people could see the characters and hear them. And that mask was called persona, if I remember correctly. And that's where we get the whole idea of personality, which a lot of people would say is identity. So your identity is basically this big, like representative symbolic mask with a big fucking megaphone attached to the front of it. So it's like there's a reason why we chose those things, you know. I mean, it's not to say like those were chosen because we intrinsically knew that our identities were false, but I don't know. Maybe there's something there. I'm not really sure. Mhm. But but yeah, if you're not really like challenging anything within yourself as you get older, um, I think you're doing it wrong. I think you're really doing it wrong. Uh, I think that I think that it's important for people to lean into psychological discomfort. I think you have to. You have to lean into discomfort. Um, because if you got a woman, she's she's not going to want to look. Like women are not really known for their mirror gazing capabilities, and I'm not talking about literal mirrors, right? They're not known for their figurative mirror gazing capabilities. Maybe of other people, sure, but not of themselves. And this is not a flaw. It's not a flaw. It's tied to their self preservation. Okay, And it can be very destructive, especially if there's softness there, if underneath there's vulnerability, if underneath there is insecurity, if there's self doubt, if there's like a million different voices, you can't tell which one's the actual you. At which point in time, well, then it might be a little bit harmful. It could be destructive, right? Or unproductive if the if the self is taking a look at that mirror and it disrupts things because that's what it's supposed to do. But you put the woman in containment, right? The containment that we talk about on this show, and things get a lot easier. It's easier, right? Because it's easier when to look in the mirror when she's holding your hand and she feels safe. She feels loved. She feels cared for. She feels protected from herself. Okay. Not really from herself, but just the fears of understanding, the fears of acknowledgement, the fears of coming to realize certain things. Like that's not easy, but it's so much easier when you're with when you're with a man whom when she's with a man whom she trusts. Whom she trusts because he trusts himself, right? Because he has faith in himself, because he's a lot of the opposites of what she is internally, right? She's got the doubt. She's got the lack of faith. She's got the insecurity. She's got the brain that moves 5,000 RPMs a minute. Well, 5,000 not very high. So let's make it 15,000. 15,000 RPMs, just winding that thing out. Sometimes the rev limiter is bouncing. Beep, 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 beep. Your cars do that when they just kind of pin the throttle and sitting there in neutral, and the exhaust is popping, and rev limiter is bouncing off. Sometimes our brains do that too. Okay, and so it's a lot easier when the man she's with is the opposite of all of these things. The opposite of these things. He's calm. He's not doubting himself. He's not full of bravado because that's just as bad, right? It's very defensive. He is just calmly convicted. He has faith without having to announce to the world what he's up to. All right. The most solid faith actually has no voice at all because what's the point? It's the faith that doubts that must shout it to the world. So it's having that quiet faith that doesn't require validation because you've already validated it, because it only requires validation to the self. In order to make it mean anything, all it requires is agreement from your internal Senate. That's it. Just internal consensus, and that's it. You don't need to look around and go, well, hey, you, stranger, am I doing this right? No, that's not how it works. But having all that together, right? That creates the opposite. That creates the containment. That's what allows her to start opening into it. This is where she trusts your influence, where you can easily just say, listen, I know the effects of what's, say like social media does on the minds of people. And I know as my woman, how susceptible you can be to that. So this is what we're going to do. And then you lay out a plan for that. Maybe it's just complete cutting off. Maybe it's rationing. Maybe it's only certain times of the day. Maybe it's used as only a reward, like whatever it is. Okay. And because there's that trust, she's like, okay, he's not trying to control me. And the only doubt I understand he's doing this because he's got a vision, not just of me, or not a vision just of his control, but it has to do with the continuity of the entire dynamic. And that to him is a weak link. It prevents that link from being galvanized. Right? Because whenever you engage with something that is affecting your mind, right, it's a subtle form of mind control that's going to be weakening the person who's engaged with that. And that's the person who's in my relationship. That's part of my system. So, I mean, I suppose you could go in with a fine-tooth comb and see what they're engaging with, like very specifically, like, all right, let's see all the pages that you're following. Let's make sure that they're, that content is good, you know. But that you could do that and say, all right, you can have your social media, but everything is going to be approved by me. Go for it. You can do that. You can really like do whatever you want as long as it aligns with you, as it aligns with your values, if it aligns with your principles, if it aligns with your codes. Like, this is what matters. If it's in alignment with you, that's all that matters. Not like, oh, does the world agree? Does my mom agree? Does my dad agree? Does my pastor agree? Does my college agree? Does my neighbor agree? It doesn't matter. Is it in agreement with your constitution? That's what matters. And if on there it says protect your mind at all fucking costs, well, then social media is out. I'm not saying that that's have to be one of your principles, but if it were, that's how you'd have to deal with it. It's like, listen, if this is in the Constitution and that over there is a violation of it, well, guess what? The violation is getting moved off the premises. And that includes your own behavior. Yeah. All right, folks. It's about that time. It's time for me to relax and make some more tea and relax a little bit, chill out. Plan for tomorrow. Every evening, you should write down the things that you need to do the next day. Don't write down the things to do that day in that morning. Okay. So write down Tuesday's things Monday night. Write down Wednesday's things Tuesday night. Don't write down Wednesday's things Wednesday morning. That's a waste of your time. You're scrambling at this point. Okay. Make it part of your evening routine, like your chill out period. Okay. Make that part of your chill out period in your evening routine to write down the things that you need to do the next day. Add in like a couple of small goals. Maybe do one thing that's in there that makes you uncomfortable. And then just do it anyways. And you can tell yourself, this doesn't make me uncomfortable. You can even tell yourself that makes you feel great. Start fucking with your own head. I mean, you can, right? It's like, hey, marketers and advertisers spend all day fucking with your head. Social media spends all day fucking with your head. Why can't you do it? Fuck with your own head. Tell yourself you love paying taxes. I love filing my taxes. And not in a sarcastic way. Like, just change your state. Change your state. Yeah, but frankly, I just want to vanish. I want to go so off grid that they can't track my income. Everyone can pay me in gold bullion and gold dust. Yeah. Okay, guys. Yes. Thank you for joining me this evening. If you have any questions, you can email me directly from the website, thedominanceacademy.com. If you'd like to pick up a couple of my new books, I'm waiting for the Annals of the Euclid Queen. It is now available on Amazon, and that's the Book of Wisdom for Submissives, but it's also useful for dominants and understanding them. And then here we have, the first edition, actually, of the Codex of the Dominant Order. or the Sovereign Order. And the second edition has some edits, and there's actually the title on the front. I wasn't sure if I want to do this like ominous title or cover or have the words, but I changed for the words. And then, of course, there's How to Be a Dominant Lover, which is also available in the Amazon bookstore. Just go to the search bar and just type in The Dominance Academy, and you can find that. So that's where this is here. Okay, it's just got a couple of people kissing on the front, which is interesting because I don't think I cover kissing at all in the book. I figure like most people like have that like gotten down in middle school or something, or high school. I don't know, but yeah, I didn't really didn't get into kissing. No, I don't think I did. Okay. But yeah, so and then there's a new tutorial out. Produced a new tutorial that's available on the website in the tutorial section, which is just an area for single subject instructionals, right? And so I don't go off into meandering different topics the way we do here. We just stuck on one particular topic, and you can take that and put it in your pocket for that day. So go and check that out. And then just keep your ear out for that announcement. If I'm going to be in Orlando this month, recording with Glenn and G McCool, we'll see if that works out. I got to check my schedule. But yeah, I guess that's it for now. Until next time, thank you for joining me, and have yourself a good one. Bye now.